river, Exceptionnel being right on that D2 road that comes in from Bordeaux, and we're smack in the middle. So for your clients, if that's not a sales point, I mean, I don't know what is, since we're at a fifth to a tenth of the price of our neighbors.
So let's recap for 2 seconds. Let me help you out to recap just very quickly here. So 1903 was when the
Crock.
Was in 1903. The family Cuvelier, obviously, since 1806, I believe, was négociant, and they were in the business from north of France. They decided to come to Bordeaux, and they purchased their first estate, which was Chateau Le Crock, the
in 1903.
In 1903. And then in 1920, 7 years after, they bought Chateau Leoville Poyferre, which was one of the largest property in Bordeaux Grand Cru appellation, as you mentioned. And obviously, when they decided to purchase the Leoville Poyferre, they also bought Moulin Riche on the same time.
Right.
A separate company, I mean, a separate vineyard, but attached. They are neighbors. They are close. Right. I mean, they are attached to each other.
It's part of Leoville Poyferre, yeah.
Got it.
No.
Good.
So,
good.
And once these purchases had happened, I mean, there was no TGV back then after the Second World War, and the Cuvelier family really wanted to be close to their vineyards and also be more of a typical négociant based in Bordeaux. And it wasn't until 1946 really when they established themselves in Bordeaux and set up the merchant company whom I work for in Bordeaux City.
Got it.
So that's a little bit of history of the Cuvelier. Before I forget, since 1994, our consultant enologist, love him or hate him, is Michel Roland.
He's a character, that's for sure.
Okay, just wanted to point that out to you guys.
We like Michel. Don't worry about it. I think it's.
I know he's like Parker. You either love him or hate him, you know. So.
You know, everybody did bring over the technique and the vision of winemaking for me, and obviously, I grew up next to Michel. He was my dad, one of my dad's very good friends. They did the wine school together. So he's a great winemaker. We work with him on a different project, including your project, of course, and also the family other project that we don't want to forget to mention is the Cuvelier Los Andes in Argentina.
Right.
Which is also part of the family business in Cuvelier, where Michel is also the property owner along with the Cuvelier family with the Clos La Siete. So Cuvelier Los Andes is part of Clos La Siete, 7 family from Bordeaux was invited over by Michel to come over to Cuvelier and purchase not 200 acres, but 2,000 acres. So they subdivide the property in 7 different property, and that's what the Cuvelier family got involved in Argentina, which we're very proud to say. Then we're also the exclusive importer distributor in the West Coast for Cuvelier Los Andes as well. So as you can see, it's a long-time relationship with the Cuvelier family. I grew up very close to them in Bordeaux back in France. That's why we met with Baptiste. That's why I met with Anne and all those guys. So I know these people for more than 35 years. So the property here, for me, from the left bank in Saint-Gien, Saint-Estephe. Chateau Le Crock was on my family table pretty much every weekend. It's one of my dad's favorite wine. And that's come from a guy then testing every day where he's an enologue. My dad was an enologue along with Michel Roland in Bordeaux doing vineyard consulting. So anyhow, long story short, Le Crock always been a huge part of my family life around the table on the Sunday. And I'm very proud to say that we still have a little bit of Le Crock in stock. If anybody has any interest, we still have 2010. I am not very in a hurry to sell it.
And may I add, Bruno, you have the last cases of 10 because we had a tragic event in Le Crock.
That's right.
In the summer of 2018, we lost 80% of our stock to a fire. And a pallet of 2010 had left the day prior.
Yeah.
Bruno.
I didn't cause the fire, I swear to God.
But
I was definitely very happy that I can actually grab this pallet before it was gone. So 2010 is one of my jam in the portfolio. Not too many people will talk to you about it, but anybody has any interest, of course, you're my
beautiful wine.
You will have access to it. 2010.
And we have 2016 coming up if you guys are ever interested.
Yeah.
Which is just as beautiful.
Very good, very good. So now let's talk a little bit more about Leoville Poyefrre, the family tree. There's a lot of cousins, a lot of people involved. I just want to so the people understand who's in charge as today at Leoville Poyefrre.
So as Anne Cuvelier likes to say, it's all women power now at Leoville Poyefrre, because Didier Cuvelier handed the reins, if you say that in English, la passé les rênes.
Yeah.
Of the estate to Sarah Cuvelier.
Sarah Cuvelier would be the daughter of
brother, so niece.
Niece, got it.
Niece,
and Anne Cuvelier is the sister.
The sister of Sarah Cuvelier, who's the director of public relations and communications. Isabelle Davant, the in-house enologist, and then if we even go further on that, the visits manager is Lori, an American from San Francisco. So it really is pretty much all women power.
Are you okay, Mario? Can you handle it? A lot of women in your
I'm
life.
on the wine. Hey, you know what? You know what? I have a wife and two beautiful daughters, and now a third on the way. So when that gypsy voyant told me in Colombia when I was 8, you'll always be surrounded by women, I thought it was a blessing. Anyway, getting back, so it's Sarah Cuvelier who took reign, but it's already been a year and a half now. Yeah. I mean, Didier is always in the coulisses, in the hallways. You know, it is France. It is, and he has such a history with clients, especially the British clients. You know, it's England. The history of England with Bordeaux is so strong, and the dates are so that really some of those big wine merchants in London they want to see Didier. You know, it's like, may I speak to DJ? I mean, it's like DJ would be the only person that exists in this world because, you know, I mean, there's those ties. But Sarah's slowly but surely picking up in there too.
Beautiful.
London trade. Okay,
so now Sarah is in charge. It's definitely 100% powered by women, which is a great thing. Also, I want to talk a little bit more about your enologist, the one that works very close with Michel Roland and taking all the direction. And I believe why I want to emphasize on her as a winemaker and
Isabelle Davant.
Repeat the name again for us.
Isabelle Davant. D-A-V-I-N. Perfect name for working in wine. Davant.
Davant makes a lot of sense. I want to emphasize a little bit about her and her work for the last 15 years, I believe, at the Chateau, because I remember the Le Crock 15, 25 years ago, very astringent, very typical, as very dry, a very old-fashioned wine. I remember the Leoville Poyefrre would be less.
Breaking up.
Yeah,
okay, it's good now.
Okay. Leoville Poyefrre being a little bit more masculine at the time. And I remember now the switch. I do follow those wines for vintage to vintage. And when we took over the importation distribution about, I would say 6-7 years ago, I'm starting to see the change in the quality, on the vision, on the philosophy of winemaking. So can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Isabelle Davant, yeah, she became the in-house enologist in 2000, working very closely with Michel Roland, and this was 25 odd years after Didier Cuvelier coming in. It's correct that Leoville Poyefrre has evolved through the years. I think it is not only a question of Michel Roland's consultancy since '94, Didier Cuvelier's planting of Petit Verdot, and there it comes back to the fore, because he's really been, when Didier Cuvelier came to Leoville Poyefrre, there was barely any Petit Verdot. So he's really been the one planting up to a quarter of the vineyards in that cépage, in that grape. And then also Isabelle Davant bringing that fresh outlook. And may I add a fourth element to it is climate. I mean, nobody can deny climate is getting warmer, and we get riper grapes without even having to ask for it. We're seeing even in vintages like 2008, 2012, which should be prior to 2000 would have been much more acidic, much less attractive wines. I mean, very, very attractive wines because of that's the 2016 Pavillon.
Yeah, I'm just showing sign to people to don't disturb your presentation about. Be sure you open your 2016 Pavillon right now if it's not.
Oh, yeah. So, but I mean, and it's very multifaceted because also, may I add a fifth? I mean, as I go on, I mean, we have an optical sorter that we've been using since 2012. That actually the project came from Didier Cuvelier having visited Italy, if I recall, with an engineer, and really it was this, the Bordeaux wine trade wanted something similar to what Italy was using for a long time for tomatoes, if you can believe that, to the grapes, to be able to pinpoint by laser grapes not being ripe enough. So like in Italy, they would discard the tomatoes that were not ripe enough, or grapes that had a piece of rot or something in them. So grapes being much smaller was a much more difficult project to implement, but that has really made our wines much more palatable, much more pleasant, and much more ripe, as well as, but this is generalized to all Bordeaux and most of the wine trade now, pre-fermentary cold maceration, the cold soak. So, and Isabelle has really been good at working as a perfect team member. I mean, it was almost like a perfect catalyzer between Didier Cuvelier and Isabelle, and now between Isabelle and Sarah Cuvelier.
Beautiful. Okay, very well. We are testing, thank you, Mario. We are testing now the Cuvelier Bordeaux White, and I want to tell you a little bit about the reason that we have this white over here. As you remember, for what Mario is telling you, this family start as a négociant. They start buying grapes or buying juice and selling to the European market a long time ago. When they purchased the Chateau, they obviously get their reputation through Leoville Poyefrre and the excellent job that they've done for all these years, and became one of the famous top 10 Chateaux in Bordeaux, especially in 2009. And we get all the press getting us 100 points. So the Leoville Poyefrre was again putting in the map, even if it was never disappeared. But really in 2009, that's why the American conception and the American business really pick it up again for Leoville Poyefrre. But what I'm saying that to you is we're now testing a négoce wine. Obviously, yes. It's not a white grape then going in the Leoville Poyefrre and Le Crock, which can happen. I mean, I work at Mouton and we have white grapes. Work in the
Côte d'Estephe now has La Goulet.
Côte d'Estephe as white as well. La Grange in Saint-Julien, I never do have amazing les arômes de La Grange, if I remember properly, and it's one of my favorite for the wine. But what I'm saying that to you is when we start doing the business together with the Cuvelier family, I told them, they say, I don't have any problem whatsoever to represent Leoville Poyefrre, one of my favorite. Obviously, we're not exclusive because it's the system in Bordeaux where Grand Cru cannot just be exclusive yet. I will come back to that, the obsolete organization in Bordeaux.
I would love it to be exclusive, but as you say, it's an archaic system. Hey.
Exactly. It's the system that we have in place, and there's nothing we can do yet about it. But I think it will change. That's another subject. But what I'm saying to you is, I told them, and I said, for us to build the brand in the market and to really be behind Leoville Poyefrre, it's no problem. People will know about Leoville Poyefrre. They will, if they have the money and the budget, they will buy Leoville Poyefrre. But I need to bring over to the table something else that I can deal every day and talking about Cuvelier family every day with my clients. So I told them to say, it is very important for you to understand an entry-level Bordeaux White, an entry-level Bordeaux Red with your name on it, because that's where you're going to get your name up there on the inexpensive entry level. Then people will buy one buys the glass or on the shelf at the entry level. So don't make the mistake that make this entry level wine with your family name on it and not a good quality wine, because that's your reputation. So that's the type of relationship that we have with our supplier. We are looking at build their presence in the market, to build their image, but it is always in a way where we build everything from the top to the bottom, or to the bottom to the top. This is our entry-level Bordeaux White that I'm very proud of, because it's so inexpensive, so well priced, so well done. Then people talk about Cuvelier, and then they talk about maybe the Pavillon de Poyefrre, then we will talk in a minute, but definitely they make a sense. They recall them about Leoville Poyefrre. So that is the technique here. When you have a restaurant, when you have a retailer, always have an entry level, start talking about the family, and then you can go up to hey, by the way, they are well known for Leoville Poyefrre, they are well known for Chateau le Crock, they are well known for this second label Pavillon de Poyefrre, and that's where you can work on your clients and make a sale. That's what the purpose of it. So the Bordeaux White here, 100% Sauvignon Blanc, Mario?
Yes, 100% correct Sauvignon Blanc. And before I forget to show you also, we work also the red with Bruno. This is within that, and as you can see that the labels, it's the same color scheme for all of our wines. These being the wine merchant wines. So 100% Sauvignon Blanc, 70% Merlot, 30% Cabernet Sauvignon for the red.
Yeah, so the red is always, it's every year different what the family doing for us, and they go sometime in the right bank, sometimes they go to Medoc, but mostly in the Entre-deux-Mer where it's the grapes are less expensive. They have a long-term relationship with the cousin. I mean, it's a large family, and every year is never the same grapes. I mean, the same
same wine producer. I mean, yeah. We have partnerships with wine producers, mostly in the right bank for both of these wines.
Yeah.
For the white and the red, because of course we can't make the entry-level wines with the Medoc terroirs we have, which are much, you know,
but
not the same price range.
I have to say, if I recall correctly, and that's what I want to be sure, then those wines are also touched by the lady winemaker.
Of course, yes.
That's what does Bordeaux, even the Bordeaux Rouge. Then, if you have a chance to try this new release vintage, which just
2016.
This
and it's beautiful.
Softer, it's rounded, it's more Merlot based, so it's definitely a better wine for buying glass. So available both red and white, 100% Sauvignon Blanc for the white, 70-30 Merlot Cab for the red, entry level Cuvelier. Both of them line up at the same price. It's your perfect BTG, $12.50.
Perfect wine by the glass and perfect wine to enjoy altogether. What Olivier wanted to do with this wine, because this is really an Olivier Cuvelier, these two entry-level wines are really Olivier Cuvelier's babies, in which he's so involved in also as a wine merchant in the cuvées, in the blending. He brings vat samples to us about 4 or 5 times a year. He calls all the staff. There's 20 of us in the company to come and taste the vat samples to decide. There's 7 to 10 different vat samples to decide what the blend is going to be like. The whole concept is, I mean, I don't want to compare this to a novice champagne, but basically that's the idea, is because there's so many different, I worked in Champagne a while, so that's why I compare it to that. But it's like, the idea is to keep a uniform style. Here we have vintages in Bordeaux. 2016, 2018. But Olivier's idea is to keep a constant style in the wines, to be able to cherry pick from different producers year on, year off, to be able to keep a style in the wine. Maybe this year it's too acidic because it was too cold. Let's try to get some batches of producers where maybe it's a little bit more fruity, or vice versa. With the white, being Sauvignon Blanc, of course, we're not in Sancerre, but Olivier tries to get, as much as it's hard to do in Bordeaux, to get that chalkier Sancerre in there. And we managed to actually get some pierre de fusil, we say in French.
Flintstone. I think we call that Flintstone.
Flintstone, yes, which is very difficult in Bordeaux because of the much warmer climate. But the essence of the wine is citrus, is fruit. It's tanginess, it's freshness, it's crispness. What we're looking for is a wine that not only will go well with oysters, with seafood, but a wine that will go well by its own, and a wine that will, un vin de soif, meaning a wine that will, once you enjoy that glass, you're not saturated, you want another glass, and you want another glass. And that's what I love with Cuvelier and Fils White. I mean, the red as well, but we're looking for a white here that's not a typical Sauvignon Blanc is from Bordeaux, which sometimes can be a little bit too ripe or a little bit flatter. Here we actually have, and that's very hard to get that crispness every year, especially in the warmer years in Bordeaux. But Olivier always manages, of course, you know, with all the batch tastings he has, the vat samples that we get, to get that crispness every year.
Good. Now, thank you very much. Is anyone want to make any comments on the Bordeaux white? Maybe someone want to give us their input about what they felt about this Bordeaux white. Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I was just taking some notes. So starting off with the nose profile, right? It's a very clean nose. I have moderate intensity. Getting a lot of pear, muscat grape, some lychee out of the nose as well too. Lots of kind of fresh tart type of fruit, right? Some jasmine floral, a hint of honeysuckle, obviously towards the wine too as well. And then on the palate, I mean, it's a dry wine. A lot of lemon zest that comes out. Still that same fresh tart type of wine. You know, medium plus or even close to high acidity. Acidity is pretty high. It's a high acidity wine. It's medium plus alcohol. You know, the alcohol is definitely there. It's you know, it's a super lengthy finish, right?
And 2018, there was a lot of alcohol in 2018.
Yeah, totally. And you know, the texture very lean. So I mean, it's a balanced wine. So it's great.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. David.
6-7 years now, and what I appreciate about this wine is that it doesn't have the oiliness that a lot of Bordeaux Blanc have, you know, with heavy Semillon blending and things like that. You get a lot of that kind of, you know, almost like it's a weird mouthfeel that comes to it. But vintage after vintage, you know, Isabel is just killing it with fresh, crisp, clean, you know, high acidity, and you know, it's just something I appreciate. So that's my 2 cents.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Mitch, you want to say something? You good? Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, this is delicious. I've always had typically a very hard time with Bordeaux Blanc. It's pyrazine's usually out of control, and they're very vegetal, and this is unlike that at all. In fact, if I had to put my life on it in a blind tasting, I'd be all over Albarino or Muscat. It's got a lot of those more white peach flavors, and the gentleman mentioned lychee. It's very, very good, and I can't believe it's 100% Sauvignon Blanc either.
Yeah. I have a little doubt on that. Sometimes they put 2 or 3% of Semillon, but there is Mario. You were lazy enough not put a Semillon on the back label, or it is Semillon, or it's not Semillon. Do you know about it?
You know, I mean, there's just things I hear and I forget. I don't remember.
I'm pretty tasting the wine. I think it's about a little bit the touch of Semillon on it. That's why you get the dry.
There's a little bit of creaminess. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I bring over the little creaminess. And where they process the fruit in Entre de Mer, we do have sometimes field blend of Semillon and Sauvignon all together. So it is very hard to say. Then it's no Semillon on it. Anyhow, in my sense, I think it's a little tiny touch of Semillon to it. Not a lot. Very good. Yes, Cole, please.
I was curious about the, because I was getting just like a hint of vanilla, something just really lovely and just a slight softness to it. I was wondering about how it was aged. Do you use neutral oak? Is it
Beautiful question. Thank you. I was going to forget about that. 100% stainless steel vats.
Stainless steel.
All stainless steel.
So that's coming from
the same for the red, by the way, both. Yeah.
That's coming from the grape, I believe, Coral. It's coming from the quality really grape. Nice. Yeah, the white flower sometimes coming up to those Sauvignon, especially in Entre de Mer, and especially on the Sauvignon about 30 years old. Then bring over these quality grapes. Yeah. The Entre de Mer is definitely one of the beautiful sources to get those inexpensive wine.
Or are you getting that vanilla on the palate or the nose?
On the nose.
On the nose.
It's so
good.
Light.
And there's no malolactic either, which is interesting. No malolactic fermentation whatsoever, because we're looking for crispness, citrus, almost passion fruit kind of lychee. What you were saying, Jake, you know, that kind of almost tropical fruit notes, but I'm more on the ananas, the pineapple-y kind of, you know, side instead of the yellow fruit mango side. So
cool.
Right.
Very good. So,
sorry.
Sorry.
You said that the stainless steel is on the red as well. The red is also.
Yes, 100% stainless steel vat on the red. But since sometimes I hear things but I forget, I do think there's a little bit of oak in this. Not necessarily barrels, but you know.
The trick to have some oak in the stainless steel.
What I've heard is staves.
Staves.
Which are not bad. I don't know, what is your...
It's easier to control, but that's not really the best way, but it is definitely the cheapest
Hey,
way.
Sam, you see me?
Then, if you don't mind, guys, as we are getting to the table here for everyone, can we move on to Pavillon de Poyefrre, please, and tell us about the concept of second label in Bordeaux and why the label was the best value, please.
So, before I go, I just wanted to say perfect match for the seafood. I was saying white meats, also some sharper cheese, some creamier cheeses that can be sharp, like goat cheese. I enjoy having goat cheese. I mean, I don't know if that's a big thing in California, but I actually enjoy having goat cheese with Sauvignon Blanc. All kinds of, I mean, not the heavier cheeses.
We have an expert on cheese, and I believe Sam did some work at the cheese store at Costa, was ready to talk to us a little bit more about the cheese pairing with this.
The cheese pairing, what would it be, Jan?
I've got a little board I made up. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay.
There you go. And then Mario will talk about the Pavillon de Poyefrre, please.
Yeah, and waiting for Jan to get back, and I know it's going to go way over an hour, but just wanted to talk about 2018 vintage, and what was really nice for the whites is that it was sometimes a little bit overbearing for the reds in terms of, you know, alcoholic levels and heat. But we did have some very nice cooler nights right before harvest, which brought the acidity up on the whites and made them crispier and what we're having now in the 2018 white of Cuvelier.
Very good.
So, Jan.
Yeah.
So that's Sam. Sam, Jan is the owner. Need to lay down because he has a little back problem. But Sam is taking over the presentation with the cheese. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. Happy to be here. Thanks for taking the time to do this with us. So I know you mentioned goat's cheeses. I picked a sheep cheese from France to go with the white Bordeaux. It's Breberousse de Argental. Really classic. Very rustic sheep's cheese. Pretty mild. Mostly about texture over flavor, but the nice kind of almost like triple cream leading texture goes really well with the textures in the wine. It's got little bits of like barnyardness going on, some fresh grass, hay, things like that. Just pairs beautifully. I've also got one sort of crossover cheese that I believe will work well with the white and the red. It's a new cheese to us at the shop. It's called Prairie Breeze. It's out of Iowa. It's cow's milk. It's somewhere between a cheddar and a Gruyere. It doesn't go through the full cheddaring process, so you get the nice kind of buttery qualities of a cheddar, but none of the typical flavors with it. Also some strawberry yogurt taste going on to it, a little sweet, a little tangy, pretty lactic. Good salt content in it too, but I think the kind of robust, more Gruyere flavors lean towards the red, whereas the sweeter kind of soft strawberry notes really work well with the white. And then I've got one more that I'll get to when we get to the red, but yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Well presented, my friend. Really, always one of the best for cheese pairing. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. Mario, please, let's move on to Pavillon de Poyefrre. Obviously, second label of Leoville Poyefrre. We do have also in stock, I just want to mention that to you very quickly, Leoville Poyefrre just arrived, 2012 vintage. And we'll talk a little bit about this 2012 great value vintage on Leoville Poyefrre. If you're looking for second Grand Cru Classé at a very beautiful price point, let us know. We do have those Leoville Poyefrre 2012 now in stock for $115 wholesale. Let's move on to Pavillon de Poyefrre, please, and tell us the concept of second label in Bordeaux, Mario.
Hello? Yeah, it broke up a bit there.
Yeah,
no.
You did.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know, you said you wanted me to talk about the second wine concept in Bordeaux, or everybody's good with that?
Second label concept of Bordeaux.
Second label, okay.
Yeah.
As you know, in Bordeaux, year on, year off, 20, 30, 40, sometimes more than that percent can go into a second wine versus the first wine. And for us, Leoville Poyefrre being the first wine, Moulin Riche, which we mentioned earlier, was the second wine of Leoville Poyefrre for decades. And it wasn't until the 90s when Didier wanted to come up, as I mentioned, with the Clos du Marquis project for Leoville Poyefrre, Moulin Riche, that we had to come up with another name for the second wine. The name that he came up with, similar to our less known neighbor, starting with an M, to the south of us, has a pavillon of something. We came up with Pavillon de Leoville Poyefrre. So, which I think, I mean, I thought, I mean, I wasn't there, but I think it's a beautiful choice.
So I'm sorry, what is the first label and what is the second label?
So the first label has always been Leoville Poyefrre.
Okay.
And Moulin Riche used to be the, it's always been a parcel, it's always been part of Leoville Poyefrre, but that name was used as a second wine name. And in the 90s, when he decided to give that vineyard its own right, its own wine, he had to come up with another name, which was Pavillon.
Pavillon.
So let's recap. So Leoville Poyefrre would be the second Grand Cru classé, the top chateau. The Moulin Riche is the property in the property, meaning it's the property that they purchased on the same time than Leoville Poyefrre.
Yeah.
But it is used to be called the second label of Leoville Poyefrre until the 1950s. What's that?
Moulin Riche?
Yeah.
Till it was 15, 20 years after DJ Cuvelier arrived. Yeah.
So then it became the old identity of Moulin Riche. That's why Moulin Riche is also amazing purchase, because it's made like Leoville Poyefrre. It's very, very much the same terroir, and it is a third of the price. A third of the price of Leoville Poyefrre. It's not a second Grand Cru classé, but it's run and managed like a Grand Cru classé. Then from these two properties, from Leoville Poyefrre and from Moulin Riche, the Bordeaux people do always a second label. Second label is to use the youngest vine, 25, 30 years old vine, which technically we call old vine in California, but here in Bordeaux, we call that the young vine. And those wines will be aged a little bit less and not necessarily in brand new oak, where it's the most expensive process, aging. So the Pavillon de Poyefrre, it's technically the second label of two estates. It's the second label of Leoville Poyefrre and Moulin Riche.
So the first is
Leoville
Poyefrre.
And the second one is Pavillon de Leoville.
The Poyefrre.
And Moulin Riche is a single vineyard, 20 hectares out of the 80.
That's the one you have in your hand, correct, Carl?
Yes, yes.
So this is the second label. This is the second label of Leoville Poyefrre. Now, when we're importer or negociant, what we're looking for is value, correct? Of course, we want to work with the big names. Of course, we want to have allocation on Leoville Poyefrre because it's a very big name in the market. But what we want also is to bring to you guys, you doing business with the consumer of the gem, the hiding gem. This is why Pavillon de Poyefrre became one of my #1 Bordeaux wine in my book, because it's made by Leoville Poyefrre. It's 100% estate. It's run in organically way like Leoville Poyefrre. It's made by the same winemaker than Leoville Poyefrre. But this is about a quarter, about half of the price of Moulin Riche and half of the price of Leoville Poyefrre. So Pavillon de Poyefrre is our to go in Saint-Julien. Saint-Julien became one of the most well-known Médoc appellation to be most elegant, but also most balanced. So Saint-Julien has a good drive in the market. And if you can get a Saint-Julien made as a second label exclusively for us to the market, this is what we became very successful with Leoville.
Bruno, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Is it uncommon for the second wine not to be made by the same winemaker or the same way in Bordeaux?
Most of the big chateaux will not take the risk. They want their winemaker to make the second label, because you still have the name of the chateau, the main chateau on the label, Pavillon de Poyefrre, but you also have, you know, some other chateau doing second label. You have a Grand Puy Ducasse with Dauphin de Ducasse. You have different, but most likely the winemaker will take care of both projects. It's just what changed in the process, like I mentioned to you, is the age of the vine and the aging process. So over here we have Pavillon de Poyefrre, and I'm very, go ahead, Carl.
It's not aged as long, and it's not aged in New York.
Correct. It's 12 months and 2-year-old oak versus the Grand Vin Leoville Poyefrre, which is 80% new oak and 18 months.
And
so 6 more months and 80%.
barrel fermentation on the Leoville Poyefrre at up to 50 to 60%, when on the Pavillon de Poyefrre, they may use 10% of barrel fermentation to bring the complexity of the wine. The family will not jeopardize the name of the family and Leoville Poyefrre, but they will give you access to those wines. Now, in Bordeaux, where it works to get access to those second label, usually have a very tight relationship with the Chateau. You have to purchase every year some of the top Chateau name, Leoville Poyefrre or Lafite or whatever, to usually have access to the second label. And what I love about second label for us importers is in Bordeaux Grand Cru, we cannot be exclusive because it's open to the market. But on the second label, if you, for the last 10, 15 years now, us, with our buying power and also the reputation that we build in the market, working with restaurants and building names and reputation and follow up, we did find a way to actually sign an exclusive contract with this family. And that's why we're so proud to represent Pavillon de Poyefrre. And that's what the main event today was, to talk to you about this new release, because I just received my 2016, which I want to get your feedback. I want to know what you tell me. You're the first people testing 16 in the market. We didn't ship this to anyone yet. So if you can help me out here to identify what you feel and the feedback that you have on this beautiful 2016 Pavillon de Poyefrre, it will be much appreciated. Now, the grape varietal on this wine is 57% Cabernet Sauvignon. We have 26% Merlot, 7% Cabernet Franc, and 10% of Petit Verdot. And that's what Mario is going to tell us about a little bit more about Petit Verdot.
So the Petit Verdot is
breakdown again.
57, 26, so 57 Cab Sauv, 26 Merlot. 10% Petit Verdot and 7 Cab Franc. The Petit Verdot oscillates between 7 to 20% in Pavillon Leoville Poyefrre over the last 20 years. And most of that Petit Verdot comes from that parcel that we keep on mentioning called Moulin Riche. It's mostly planted inland in that 20-hectare parcel, 20 hectares out of the 80. 2016 vintage that we're tasting now. When we discuss things here in Bordeaux, we like to say it's more similar to 2010 because it has that density and that complexity of 2010, that elegance, versus 2015 that tends to be more like 2009.
More commercial, more fruit forward.
Fruit, right, fruit forward, yeah.
It's a 16, a classic vintage. Very classic, and you have this beautiful long minerality and the strengths to the grape. First time that we're testing this one before it just showed up 3 weeks ago. I wait 3 weeks before I can open up the first bottle, you know, for shipping reasons. Sometimes when you ship wine, you have some shipping bottle shock. Then I want to avoid before I open the first one. So we shipped this one, it arrived about 3 weeks ago. You're the first people testing the 16th. You're welcome to tell us anything you feel about this wine. This is why we're here today. I want to take the lead on that. Hey, Paul, what do you think about this wine? A winemaker testing Bordeaux, it's always fun.
Oh, I think it's tasting great. It's got what I really like the best out of it is, and I'm just looking at the palate parts of it because of comparison reasons for what we get out of the mountains up here. And I love the richness in the mid palate part. There's a bit more tannin structure on the back side, which bodes well for, I would say, for almost any companionship with meat or anything that you're going to serve with it. But it's got a beautiful nose, a lot of complexity to it. I think it'll open up even more in the glass as I sit here, because I've only had it open for, well, now about an hour. But I think it's tasting great. I'm interested that for us, Petit Verdot has a very, very strong blackberry characteristic to it. And with that level of Petit Verdot, do you think that it bolsters up the fruit characteristics more, or are you going for the density and the color parts of it? And I'll take my question. What do you say?
Mario.
I think you hit it on the nail with the density, almost those layers of silkiness that you get in the wine, almost like a millefeuille, you know, it just keeps on.
Millefeuille for Napoleon.
Yeah. More than the fruit. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody want to add anything to this?
I drank it with a filet mignon last night,
Nice.
and it was really lovely. Just on opening and then drinking it last night, and then now drinking it in the morning, it is maintaining its own. It's really well structured, but not overwhelming. It's drinking just as well this morning as it did, I don't know,
Last night.
16 hours ago.
That's great. Meaning that the wine is holding very much. It's 2016. We're in 2020, if I remember properly. So a 4 years old wine then tastes like a baby. The potential of this wine,
It is a baby.
Yeah.
the potential of this one, in my sense, I have a 5 to 8 years on this baggage right here. David said 10, but it is
10,
a great
yeah?
potential.
I agree. I was going to say more 10.
It is a wine as well for the people who consume California Cabernet. I believe it's approachable. I think it has the body and the structure that will not obviously disappoint anyone, even if you're drinking Cabernet and Napa Valley every day. That's why I love the structure of this Pavillon de Poyefrre. The cost of the Pavillon de Poyefrre new release, as you have to understand, we did have to take over the 25% beautiful taxes for European wine and their 14% alcohol. This one is the alcohol contents, I believe, is 13%. So it's very low alcohol with a beautiful expression of the fruit. And the wholesale price that we're putting in the markets, that's for 53 frontline, we're doing a special at 48 right now. When the Leoville Poyefrre 2012 vintage is 115. So see, the value of Pavillon de Poyefrre is there. The Pavillon de Poyefrre does bring over the people who want to spend $75 on the shelf will be, I believe, very happy with this quality of wine. Does anybody want to describe quickly? Mitch, do you want to say something about this wine quickly? I mean, unmute you if I can. There we go.
Yeah, I like the freshness and the vibrancy on it, and I think it comes across in a more feminine style. Very elegant. I'm finding the more ripe red fruit rather than going that Petit Verdot black. It's just very lovely. It's got a wonderful texture, and it just high drinkability. I think it's very pleasant and not overwhelming at all. Like I said, the feminine side of it is very endearing to me, and that's what I find most enticing about it.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate that. Everybody agree with that? Anybody want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit. So I agree with Paul. It's a very, very complex wine, in my opinion. On the nose, I'm getting a lot of kind of the more black fruit, right? A lot of ripe and kind of bruised type of black fruit. There's some of that potting soil earthiness on the nose, but on the palate, more of the fresh red fruit kind of comes out, right? It is kind of young. The acidity is on the higher side that I can taste. I didn't expect the acidity to be that high, but it kind of does hit high. And tannins are there, but I think acidity takes a little bit higher than the tannin itself. The texture is pretty round. But again, just like what Dave said and you guys said, this thing, if you can lay this down for a little bit longer, I think that's when the acidity will probably drop, and then the tannins kind of come up a little bit, and then the flavors will probably come out a little bit. But right now, it's drinking, just it's young, you can tell.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, put 2 or 3 cases in your cellar, Jake, and you will open up once every weekend to see how it goes.
Maybe.
Very good, very good. I want to go back to 2012 vintage for Leoville Poyefrre. Why did I choose 12? When we are buying Grand Cru, we obviously taking position on every vintage. Depends which vintage and how deep we're going on the buying. But when we are bringing a wine for the restaurant business and for our consumer in the retail business, we all know that 90% of the wine and butts were going to be consumed in 48 hours. So when I work with my winery, I always try to test the older vintage, the evolution, because those wines, when they open young, like we say the 16 on the Pavillon, So imagine a 16 Leoville Poyefrre. Way very tight right now. The expression doesn't show up yet because those wines are need 5 to 8 years to really express themselves in a good way. So when we look at the inventory of what the Chateau did have and looking at the vintage reputation and looking at the value, it was naturally for us a good to go was 2012 these days. 11 doesn't have, I believe the wine, the 11 vintage in Leoville Poyefrre was absolutely well done. I will prefer the 11 as far as quality, I believe, but I believe the wine was still a little tight and a little bit green. The 2012 is way more softer, it's way more inviting, and it's a little bit more approachable. And I believe then most of our consumer will appreciate the 12. Now the reputation on the 12 also was not as the 15 or as not as the 16, was not as the 18 and 19 that they are talking to us these days, but definitely not the same prices too. So we took advantage to get the 12 because we felt that was the right vintage to release right now, ready to go, ready to drink, and the best value. That's why the 12 is in stock. So is anything you want to add, Mario, regarding the 12 vintage as far as the maybe the specs of the vintage?
Yes, I actually spoke to Isabelle Devant this morning to get a little bit more insights into the actual climatology and how it influenced that vintage. She compared it to 2008. In that in 30 years, the harvest had not been that late. We harvested all the way up to the 20th of October, which is very, very late for Bordeaux. We started on the 8th, sorry, of October. So over 12 days. And it wasn't, 2008 was similar dates, and other than that, everything was much earlier, end of September, beginning of October. So.
Okay, so 2012 would be obviously a late bloomer, but definitely will be with the complexity and the softness of the fruit.
And actually, when we taste back to back 8 and 12, even though 12 is younger, 12 is more accessible.
Yeah.
I compared to 8. 8 is still much more closed up, I find. 2012 has more those leathery notes that kind of come to, for me, to the fore. It really was, I mean, and that's why when you mentioned 15, 16, 10, and 9, we're talking very different vintages, very different ball games. I mean, and for me, 12, 8, 6 are much more classic of what Bordeaux has always done, in a sense. I mean, that's more the classic Bordeaux was. And 15, 16, we're just getting these beautiful, I mean, exceptional vintages all of a sudden. But 12, it really is a classic vintage that should not be ashamed of compared to.
And a way better prices than your 15
yeah.
and your 18 and your 19, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Cole.
How does that later harvest translate into that wine? Does it result in more acidity? Do you have?
In a sense, what happened was, I mean, we had it gives it more complexity, I find. It gives it more complexity. It almost has these. I find des arômes like cedar almost, which sometimes is not very, very positive for a wine, huh? But those cedar notes, almost cedar aromas, compared to 15, 9, that were much earlier bloomers, where it was ripe fruit, where it was chunkier. Here we don't have that chunkiness. We have more, in a sense, I mean, I find a more pleasant classic Bordeaux that will age. I mean, 16 will age forever, but compared to 15 and 9, I find will age, 2012 will age longer.
Good.
I mean, 15 and 9 were just approachable right away. I tasted 15 in the barrel, and it was ready.
What's the breakdown on the 12?
Here we are at 62 Cap Sauv. So we have.
So we are talking about, just to be sure, everybody, we are talking about 2012
Leoville Poyefrre. Yeah, 62 Cab Sauv, 32 Merlot, and 6% Petit Verdot, and there is absolutely no Cab Franc in the blend.
David, you did have a question.
Yeah, I just have a general question. I don't want to be a bummer at all, but Mario,
No.
how's the Chateau kind of dealing with global warming and things like that are happening?
How can I put this nicely for Bordeaux? We tend to have much more mildew problems because of the humidity in Bordeaux. If I were to show you the weather right now here, it's 14 degrees Celsius and raining in mid-May. As I told you, I lived and worked in Burgundy, and Burgundy tends to be much drier and have more of those roller coaster temperatures between winter and summer, much more continental. Yeah, Bordeaux, because of the Atlantic influence. Yes, we're much wetter. Yes, we have much more issues with humidity, and that's why we don't have that many organic wines, David, because when you have, we cannot excel in organic wines like Cuvelier and even Burgundy because we have that much more humidity. That, in a certain sense, saves us because when you have a much more Atlantic influence, a much more colder, kind of like Seattle-ish kind of influence, versus inland like Bend, Oregon, we don't get as affected as Burgundy is going to be affected, as Côte-du-Rhône is. I mean, Côte-du-Rhône, they have different varietals, but I think Burgundy is going to suffer a lot more, especially with their, I mean, they are with their Chardonnays, than we'll ever, I mean, it's going to come much later. It's really going to have to get bad. But we are, that's, for us, it's more dealing with problems of mildew and humidity related problems than it is with heat related problems.
Hey, Mario. So back on the 12, when would you say would be the ideal time to drink that for you personally? How long can it really sit for? I ask because I have a magnum of it, and I really don't know when I'm going to really open it. So.
Well, when you're going to invite me over, Jack, don't worry, we'll drink it.
That's a good answer. Bruno's like.
I literally flew home.
Whenever Bruno comes.
In a wooden box, flew home with it. So it's kind of like I got to figure it, and it's a 12, so I got to figure it out when to really drink it.
I'd say, I mean, we're only 8 years into it.
It's also a Magnum, so it's got more aging potential.
God, yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't open it for another 5 to 10 years. But if you have, I mean, if you're impatient, you can always, there's always ways. But no, I'd wait another 5 to 10 years.
Oh, I stare at that daily. I'm like, damn, should I just do it? Like.
Do you think we're going to be friends still in 5 years?
Jake, I've been in confinement for 2 months. I raided my whole wine cellar. Tell me about it. Anyway, I'm sorry, Bruno.
No, I was just wondering if I'm going to still friend with Jake for the next 5 years. So maybe we should the process and drink it next weekend.
Sounds like a plan, Bruno.
Just kidding. Thank you, Jack. Is Sam available to talk to us about cheese, or you have to go? Hold on. Jan, you have to unmute yourself. Okay. No, it's not going to work. You mute, my friend.
Yeah, we have customer right now.
Okay. You tell us if you're ready before we finish. But yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Guys, I feel then we obviously talk about the Cuvelier, which you now understand why I'm so close to this family, because such a great production and they are making for us. The Cuvelier family really bring over the classic of the left bank, and this is one of my go-to.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got this.
There we go. Mario is here. Is anybody has any question to wrap it up this event? Anybody want to get more information? Everybody has a little comments about those wines?
Good.
Hello?
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 We're right here.
I'm going to try the reds tonight. I haven't had a chance.
It's so very toppy.
Mario, what would you recommend is the best pairing with the red that I could do at home tonight?
I'm sorry, it's very toppy. You said you said?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Food pairing.
What do you think is the best food pairing for the red? I'm going to try that one tonight.
For the LP, for the Leoville Poyefrre 2012, or for the Pavillon?
No.
Pavillon.
For The 16, the Pavillon.
Oh, for the Pavillon 16,
We didn't give it away the 2012 Leoville Poyefrre yet, Mario.
I know,
If you want,
I know, but hey,
that's something
I'm gonna
on your time.
I'm gonna give it to you for both. For the Pavillon, I'd really see it very nicely with some red tuna. I see it very nicely with some leaner cuts of meat, of beef. I'd even see it nicely with some whiter meats like rabbit or chicken, but it would have to be with cream, with mushroom or some type of cream. With the Leoville Poyefrre, we're talking much more gamier meats. I'd say much more magret de canard, much more.
That's for the Leoville.
For the Leoville Poyefrre, yeah, much more lamb, much more ribeye.
Got it.
Fatter
Cool.
meats.
Well, everybody, those wines are available, you know where, at Hillside and Regency, Las Vegas and California. I mean, I will say Las Vegas, Nevada and California. It looks like Jan waving his, yeah, you want to say something, Jan?
I have the wine on the shop. You can come to buy it.
There we go. I want to thank you very, very much. If anybody want to add anything, you're welcome